Good morning. Happy Friday, casual Friday. I'm in my comfortable shirt. No chancel choir today. It is the 6th day of November. 6th day since I've shaved. It is no shave November. Can you tell? Probably day by day, not so much. It'll take another week, and if I can stand it, who knows? Maybe I'll make it to the end of the month. We'll see. Pastor Ron Jetter, Immanuel Lutheran Church, Grandview, Washington. Got to introduce myself every time. One of the great stories, and certainly if you're looking for a story that lends itself to a movie director making amazing scenes, amazing action scenes, chapter 14 of the book of Exodus is everything that Cecil B. DeMille, the famous Hollywood director, could ever want in the blockbuster The Ten Commandments, starring Charlton Heston as Moses. Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and camp in front of Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal-zephon. You shall camp opposite it by the sea. Pharaoh will say of the Israelites, 'They're wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has closed in on them. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, so that I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and over all his army, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord.'" And they did so. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the minds of Pharaoh and his officials were changed toward the people, and he said, "What have we done letting Israel leave our service?" So he had chariots made ready, took his army with him. He took 600 picked chariots and all the other chariots and Egyptian officers with them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the Israelites, who were going out boldly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, his chariot drivers, and his army. They overtook the Israelites camped by the sea, by Pi-hahiroth, in front of Baal-zephon, names which mean nothing to us. But if we looked at a map, they'd be there next to the Red Sea, where the Red Sea meets the land of Egypt. And there's only one way out. And if you don't have boats, you better pray for a miracle. As Pharaoh drew near the Israelites, they looked back, and there were the Egyptians advancing on them. In great fear, the Israelites cried out to the Lord. So in a few verses ago, they're going out boldly, and now all of a sudden, they are appropriately afraid. I'd be a little worried if they weren't scared at this point. Men, women, and children, families, moving. If you've ever moved, it's been 28 years since we moved. 28, 27, something like that. Anyway, quite a while. You don't want disasters. You don't want flat tires. You don't want automobile wrecks. You don't want trailers having problems with them. You don't want food sickness. You don't want any of the things that can happen when you're on the road while you are moving, especially when an entire people are moving in. You really don't want to be pursued by an army and an angry Pharaoh. But they were. And Cecil B. DeMille presents it to us as these chariots driving recklessly over these hills and these roads carved into the side of the hill that are barely wide enough, and sometimes two chariots will try to pass each other. And there they are coming, and you can just see all it would take is a little bit of quaking of the ground, and that ground would collapse beneath them, and that army would fall into the canyon. What does Cecil want to do with this story? The Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. But you lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the Israelites may go into the sea on dry ground." Moses had done all these plagues, 9 plagues, with the help of his staff, he and his brother Aaron. It didn't occur to Moses that he could part the sea. because it seemed Moses really didn't have that much of an imagination. It didn't occur to him that you just do that. When have we ever seen the sea part, except in, of course, the movie, The Ten Commandments? And I guess that was really quite a feat for them to figure out how to do that in a Hollywood studio, to try to actually create this separation of the waters to make that scene happen. Today we would do it with what's called CG, computer graphics, computer generated images. My son does that with video games for a living. But wow, they had to do it the old-fashioned way. DeMille had to figure out how to make it look like a sea was parting and thousands of people were walking between these two walls of moving water with this dry path between them. But the Israelites were a little afraid. Of course they were. They said to Moses, "Why have you brought us out here? Is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you've taken us to die in the wilderness? Better to serve as slaves in Egypt than to die in the wilderness." Moses said, "Do not be afraid." And so the people moved into the dry path in the midst of the sea. The angel of the Lord, verse 19. The angel of the Lord was going before the Israelite army, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved in front of them and took its place, moved from in front of them and took its place behind them. It came between the army of Egypt and the army, of Israel. And so the cloud was there with the darkness, and it lit up the night. One did not come near the other all night. This is the first we get that this is all happening at night or at dusk. So the army, it took a while. The army may have left in the morning when the riders come back and say, "We found where the Israelites are encamped." Pharaoh sends his army out there, and now it's dark, and here's this pillar of cloud, but now there's darkness. And it lit up the night, so now it has become the pillar of fire. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord drove back the sea by a strong east wind and all night and turned the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. The Israelites went into the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went into the sea after them, all of Pharaoh's horses and chariots drivers. At the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and cloud looked down upon the Egyptian army and threw the Egyptian army into a panic. He clogged their chariot wheels so that they turned with difficulty. Well, mud. It's not just dry ground, now it's mud. The Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Well, in the movie it occurred during the daytime, but in the text, in the Bible, this is happening at night. So they are at night, and they may have torches, but the angel of the Lord is now behind them, and this pillar of cloud and fire is between them and the Egyptian army, and they are in the darkness, stumbling over rocks, taking their carts and wagons and the children and their flocks. It could not have been quick going, even though it's a journey of, 15 miles. Well, you don't just do 15 miles in the drop of a hat. A marathon runner could do it in an hour or so, maybe, or two. I could probably do it in 5 or 6, maybe walking. Maybe more than that. I don't know. It's hard to say. I haven't tried it in a while. But it would take them all night long, and it sounds like it did, because it had just gotten dark when they parted the sea, and now the morning watch, it says, has appeared. The morning watch, well, the first light of dawn, okay? And now they can see. Why did God want them to not see? And I think this is on purpose. I think it's God saying, You're going to go into darkness, or you're not going to go at all. You're going to trust that the light is at the end of the so-called tunnel, in this case, the tunnel of water. God is with you. Trust and keep going. You can't go back. You've committed, and God is committed. Go forward into the darkness toward the light. Go toward the light. Thus, the waters returned and covered the chariots and the chariot drivers and the entire army of the Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained, but the Israelites walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great work that the Lord did against the Egyptians, so the people feared the Lord and believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. That day they did. There's always tomorrow. See you tomorrow.